In 1928, at an excavation site in Giza, Egypt, a distinguished professor of archaeology and his daughter arrived to examine a significant find. The local foreman, visibly elated by the discovery, presented to the chief a round plate inscribed with numerous previously unseen hieroglyphs. Simultaneously, the professor's daughter was drawn to a medallion featuring the symbol of Ra. As the workers uncovered a large hoop adorned with identical symbols to those on the plate, the professor was astonished to recognize the artifact as a high-tech device of considerable scale. 66 years later, the professor's now elderly daughter attended a symposium on ancient Egypt, where Dr. Daniel Jackson presented his controversial theory. Dr. Jackson argued that the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed well before the 4th dynasty of the pharaohs. This assertion elicited outrage from the scholarly community, with some speculating fantastical origins for the pyramid's construction, such as Atlanteans or Martians. The audience, dismissing Jackson's theory as nonsensical, exited hastily. As Jackson left the venue, he was approached by an unidentified man who invited him to follow him to a car where Catherine Langford, the professor's daughter, awaited us. Langford, familiar with Jackson's situation from a detailed dossier, offered him an opportunity to decipher ancient Egyptian texts. Despite initial reluctance due to his recent eviction and financial difficulties, Jackson was persuaded by Langford's assurances of a promising opportunity. Later, 2 military personnel visited retired Colonel Jonathan O'Neill, who was grieving the recent accidental death of his son. The military informed O'Neill of his reinstatement to duty. The following now, Jackson arrived at a military research center housed in a former nuclear missile silo. He was met by a team of scientists who showed him the plate discovered decades earlier in Giza. Jackson, upon examining the plate, noted that the hieroglyphs were not typical, but might represent a form of cuneiform script. He immediately identified discrepancies in the interpretations provided by other scientists. Realizing the significance of the symbols as coordinates for interstellar travel, Jackson was astonished by the military's interest in a 5,000-year-old Egyptian artifact. However, the colonel corrected the scientists, stating that tests indicated the artifact was 10,000 years old, a figure that initially seemed implausible due to the non-existence of Egyptian civilization at that time. Despite skepticism, the colonel was appointed head of the project, and all information was classified, requiring coordination with him for every decision. 2 weeks later, Jackson struggled to decipher the symbols, which lacked a logical sequence and did not resemble any known ancient language. During a late-night coffee break, he observed an image of the Orion constellation in a guard's newspaper. Comparing this image to the symbols, he realized that they represented constellations. An emergency meeting was convened, during which Jackson revealed that the symbols were coordinates for space travel. The military, impressed by Jackson's rapid progress, noted that the interpretation of these symbols had eluded other scientists for years. Despite the breakthrough, there was a challenge. The coordinates required an origin point, but only 6 symbols were available in the cartouche. The 7th symbol, located just below the cartouche, was crucial. The colonel then permitted Jackson to see what lay behind the coverstone. Jackson was introduced to the Stargate, an artifact composed of a mineral not found on Earth. Using the decoded data, a team of technicians programmed the Stargate, and Jackson successfully identified the 7th symbol, representing Earth. The Stargate was activated, creating a vortex. A drone equipped with sensors was sent through and transmitted its location in another galaxy, specifically the Callium Galaxy. Analysis revealed that the atmosphere on the other side was identical to Earth's. The drone also captured an image of the Stargate from the other side, showing different symbols. The military planned to study these symbols before proceeding, but Jackson, enthusiastic about the success, offered to decipher them if allowed to go through the gate himself. The military, after deliberation, agreed to send a team with equipment to investigate the new galaxy. Jackson brought with him literature on Egyptian civilization and received from Langford a medallion with the Ra symbol, which she had found as a child and considered lucky. The Stargate was activated, and the team traveled through the portal, emerging on a desert planet. The structure housing the gate was an exact replica of the Great Pyramid of Giza. As the military gathered data, Jackson explored the structure for additional information. The colonel instructed everyone to prepare to return to Earth, emphasizing the need to finish their mission within the hour. Jackson informed them that to fully decipher the symbols and operate the Stargate from this side, he required a coverstone similar to the one on Earth. The absence of such a stone hindered his ability to realign the Stargate. This revelation caused frustration among the team, particularly when Jackson had not mentioned this need earlier. One soldier expressed anger, while the colonel, secretly carrying an atomic bomb, had a hidden agenda that only he was aware of. Meanwhile, Jackson discovered strange footprints in the sand and followed them to a primitive settlement where he encountered an animal resembling an earth ox. His interaction with the creature led him to a settlement, recognizing the symbol of Ra revered him. The military collected a mineral sample from the natives, confirming it as the same material used in the Stargate's construction. Attempts to communicate with the settlement's leader were initially unsuccessful, but Daniel offered a Fifth Avenue candy bar, which was well received and led to further interaction. The strangers entered the town, where the symbol of Ra, revered as the sole deity by the inhabitants, prominently adorned the central area. The colonel immediately recognized the source of the warm welcome extended to them. As a powerful sandstorm commenced, all residents retreated to their homes. Meanwhile, the remaining military personnel stationed at the camp attempted to contact the colonel via radio. However, the storm's interference rendered communication impossible, necessitating their shelter within the pyramid. In the evening, the locals provided the strangers with local delicacies. The colonel suggested that, given their familiarity with the Egyptian symbol, the locals might possess knowledge of Egyptian writing. Daniel Jackson endeavored to pose his inquiry by inscribing a question in the sand. However, an elder, upon witnessing this act, erased the hieroglyphs in a state of panic and ordered everyone to turn away, indicating that writing was prohibited. The colonel instructed that Daniel be taken away and cleaned in a tent, where he was then visited by a young woman he had previously admired. Although the scientist initially asked her not to disrobe, he soon found himself compelled to remove her, only to witness the elder reprimand her at the entrance. Expressing his gratitude, Jackson attempted to engage in conversation with the young woman, whose name was Sha'uri. Despite her evident apprehension regarding the forbidden writing, she eventually responded by writing a symbol representing Earth. She agreed to take Daniel to the location where she had observed this symbol. Concurrently, the soldiers in the pyramid continued their unsuccessful attempts to establish contact with their colleagues in the settlement. A colossal starship responsible for the sandstorm and radio interference hovered above the pyramid, enveloping it in a protective dome. Inside, the military personnel were attacked by an unidentified creature wielding advanced plasma weaponry and wearing armor reminiscent of an Egyptian deity. Sha'uri guided Daniel to a cave inscribed with ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The pronunciation of these hieroglyphs significantly differed from what Daniel was familiar with, which had previously impeded his understanding of the language. Sha'uri taught him the correct pronunciation. Meanwhile, the colonel struggled to convey to local teenagers his need to locate Daniel. One of the teenagers provided a jacket to his pet to track the scientist. This led the colonel to find Daniel with Sha'uri, who had by then mastered the pronunciation rules, though challenges remained with vowel sounds. According to the inscriptions, the planet's civilization began with a star traveler who, fleeing his dying world, sought to extend his life by adopting a human form on Earth. The traveler proclaimed himself a god and used the Stargate to transport thousands of people to this planet, forcing them into labor to extract a mineral essential to his technology, which he used to prolong his life. When Earth's inhabitants rebelled upon discovering his true identity, the Stargate was buried. Fearing a similar rebellion on this planet, the traveler outlawed reading and writing. Within the cave, they discovered a cover stone with Earth coordinates, but the symbol denoting this planet as the point of origin was destroyed, making it impossible to open a gate to the correct destination. The sole surviving soldier from the pyramid was taken to the sarcophagus of Ra, where his body was recovered by Ra. The team departed the settlement to return to their camp near the pyramid. Daniel bid a reluctant farewell to Sha'uri, as a group of teenagers from the settlement secretly followed them. Upon noticing the ship above the pyramid, the colonel and his team entered the pyramid and discovered abandoned equipment. A local guardian appeared and attacked the two military men with a plasma staff, an event witnessed by the settlement's teenagers through a window. The colonel and Jackson descended to the gate, where O'Neill attempted to activate the atomic bomb, only to discover it was missing. A hatch opened, from which another guardian descended from the starship. The colonel and scientists were surrounded by several guards and subsequently surrendered. They were taken aboard the ship, which resembled a pharaoh's palace, where Ra, surrounded by children, awaited them. Ra assumed they intended to destroy him and ordered his guards to remove their masks, revealing them as ordinary humans. Ra himself was still inhabiting the body of a young boy he had possessed thousands of years prior. During a struggle, the colonel seized a staff, initiating a gunfight in which Daniel was killed. The children shielded Ra, preventing the colonel from firing, and the colonel was subdued by another guard. Ra discovered a medallion with his symbol on Daniel's chest, and had the colonel thrown into a pit with 3 surviving soldiers. Meanwhile, the teenagers investigated the abandoned weapons at the military camp, while 2 strike fighters from the spaceship attacked the settlement as punishment for aiding the strangers, resulting in numerous casualties. The elder informed his son that Ra had punished them for their assistance and expressed regret. Daniel regained consciousness in Ra's sarcophagus with no trace of his previous wounds. Ra confided that he had chosen the human race due to the ease of body recovery and was impressed by the technological advancements since his departure from Earth. However, fearing that Earth's inhabitants now posed a threat, Ra planned to send the atomic bomb back to Earth with his mineral to increase its destructive power. He demanded that Daniel execute his friends publicly to prove Ra's divinity to the locals. Sha'uri, in the meantime, led the teenagers to the cave with the inscriptions and shared with them the professor's revelations about Ra's true identity and the origins of their people. The following night, Ra summoned all the inhabitants for a public execution. A guard handed Professor Daniel a staff. Daniel pointed the staff at the military men, while the settlement's fighters signaled their readiness for battle. With a determined look, Daniel turned around, tossed the staff into the air, and fired at the enemy. A chaotic brawl erupted, and amidst the fray, the Earthlings skillfully blended into the crowd, despite suffering heavy casualties. As they escaped, the Earthlings and the natives celebrated their small victory. By evening, everyone was geared up for another battle against Ra and his fighters. However, the colonel was vehemently opposed to this plan. He knew firsthand how perilous it was to entrust weapons to inexperienced hands. "Why don't you just tell him everything?" someone asked. "Basically, why don't you mention the bomb?" The colonel then revealed his mission: to send the group back to Earth while remaining on the planet to destroy the Stargate on this side. If he encountered any danger, he was to use the bomb he had, named the bomb, to obliterate everything. The explosion, he warned, would be 100 times more devastating than anything they had seen before. As the guards reported their failure to Ra, the enraged leader executed one of his soldiers. Meanwhile, back at camp, the children laughed at Daniel's attempts to cook dinner. "Husbands don't do this work," they teased. Daniel realized that the night Sha'uri had come to him was the night of their wedding. Delighted by the turn of events, he approached the girl and kissed her. After their intimate moment, Daniel noticed the elder son drawing a symbol on the wall, an ancient symbol marking the point of origin, a crucial piece of the puzzle Daniel had been searching for. "What are you doing?" Daniel asked. "I found it," the boy replied. The next day at the quarry, the military killed a guard. The elder tried to intervene but was unable to convince his son, who refused to live as a slave. In desperation, the elder prayed for divine forgiveness. Daniel called out to the elder, revealing the true nature of their gods. Inspired, the slaves rose from their knees. Daniel, along with a group of teenagers, made their way to Ra's pyramid, where the miners were delivering minerals. Inside the pyramid, a fierce firefight erupted. The gates slammed shut, trapping some attackers outside, where they were pinned down by stormtroopers. Ra, furious, ordered an immediate bomb to be sent to Earth. At this critical moment, the colonel activated his own bomb, intending to complete his mission. "I thought we agreed to dismantle the gate on the other side," he argued. "You will. That's your job now. I'm staying here to make sure this goes off." As chaos unfolded, a guard injured Sha'uri. Meanwhile, a portal opened, and Daniel, with his beloved, jumped through. The guard who had opened it took Daniel's place, attacking the colonel. Daniel stealthily brought his spouse to Ra's sarcophagus while the colonel was being pummeled by the guard. Daniel managed to heal his spouse, but Ra found him, using a microwave built into his arm to fry Daniel's brain. In the ensuing struggle, the colonel activated the portal using the device on his opponent's arm, severing the guard's head. Daniel and his wife descended into the pyramid, but they had lost precious time. O'Neill tried to disable the bomb's timer, but Ra had altered the device, making it impossible to deactivate. Meanwhile, the remaining military personnel and children were held at gunpoint by stormtroopers. But then, the elder appeared with the other inhabitants, charging at their oppressors with axes and sticks. Realizing his authority was slipping, Ra decided to retreat. As the situation on Earth mirrored the unfolding chaos on this planet, he hurriedly packed his belongings and fled. The colonel and Daniel puzzled over how to deactivate the bomb. They devised a plan to teleport it to Ra's ship, which was conveniently leaving the atmosphere. Using the remote control from the dead guard, they successfully executed their plan. As the bomb detonated aboard Ra's ship, Ra revealed his true form before succumbing to the explosion. The colonel and the remaining soldiers bid farewell to Daniel, who chose to stay on the planet with his wife. "Give the medallion to Catherine," Daniel requested. "Tell her it brought me luck." After heartfelt goodbyes, the military returned to Earth. This concludes the summary of the movie Stargate. The film left a profound impression on me as a child, and I felt compelled to share this remarkable story with you, my dear friends. You can always find the title and detailed information about the movie in the video description.